And
You know what?
yes.
My brother's here and he does not even know
Is he here?
where we're meeting at.
Oh.
Just thought, I mean, we're missing people. And I'm missing Jim. Is it Jim?
Yeah, I think it might have been him that texted me and said he had it was either him or Taylor, something about a roof job
Oh, okay.
that they had this weekend. So I don't know.
Yeah, they're taking advantage of the...
Yeah, I don't know.
See if I can find him.
He may be in the men's class. But we'll go ahead. Law of influence. Leadership is simply about influencing people. Nothing more, nothing less. A lot of people, at times people don't think they're a leader because of their definition of leadership. But actually, all of us lead something or somebody. Even as a father, you try to lead your children. At times, you try to lead your wife, right? At times, you get led by your wife. But then she practices the law of influence. But leadership is not title, position, power, stature. It is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. So, there are 5 myths, if you will. Myths. Yes. 5 myths.
I know one of them.
One of them is management. And it's the idea that leading and managing are one and the same. And that leads us back to what we heard about the McDonald brothers. The McDonald brothers were good managers, but they didn't have insight to lead. The entrepreneur myth, entrepreneurs are skilled at seeing opportunities and going after them. A lot of times, and I've heard this, I don't consider myself an entrepreneur, but I've heard, even just the other day in a podcast, they were talking to this entrepreneur, and he asked him, the question was, are you better at starting? Are you a good starter? Are you a good finisher? What do you, where do you, and he said, well, and he admitted he's a good starter. And they began to talk about, because a lot of times entrepreneurs are good starters,
Right.
but they don't finish well because they're all the time wanting new ideas. They're wanting to move on. And so they talked about how successful entrepreneurs know how and when to kind of hire someone else to make up their shortcomings. So the product can be saw through and they can move on to the next project. But just because someone's an entrepreneur doesn't mean that's necessarily a good leader. So you can have a tremendous entrepreneur partnering with a good leader, and you can have some great things happen, because not all leaders are entrepreneurs.
I would say a good analogy of that is Apple, because Steve Wozniak, he was he's great on the technology end, but suffered on the pushing it and selling it end.
And
Steve Jobs came in and created their success.
he was the leader. And Jobs wasn't, he could do tech, but he wasn't what the other people were.
Right.
That is true. That is true. There's the knowledge myth, knowing what to do and influencing others to do it are 2 different things, 2 different skills. So a good leader that knows how to get things done, or knows how to influence, knows how to lead, will surround himself with people that know what needs to be done. Because not all the time does a leader know exactly what needs to be done, but they know how to get it done once they know. And then there's the pioneer myth, and that says you can get there first, you can pioneer, and you're a leader. But that's not necessarily so, because if no one follows you where you're going, you're not leading. Position. I have a title or position, people will follow me. We've seen this one a lot, especially in church, where because we've created in our minds this such and such ministry, So since we have this ministry, which is actually just an idea, it's really not anything but a cloud, we need somebody to fill it. So we'll find somebody that says, that sounds interesting, and we make them the leader because we give them a title. And then many times, more than not, in those situations, we find out that they're not so much of a leader. Just because they have a title does not qualify them to lead. So that can cause many of a mess. So go down to see, you guys still have the blanks, don't you? So on the next page, page 2, where we're learning the law of influence. There are 7 key factors to being a leader. Character, relationships, knowledge, intuition, experience, past success, and ability. Character is who you are. People can sense truth and integrity. Relationships is who you know. So you have to surround yourself with the right people. Because we're always, 1, guilty by association. 2, if you hang, as they say, if you hang with the turkeys, you'll be like a turkey. If you fly with the eagles, you'll soar. So you got to be careful who you surround yourself with. When I went to the juvenile detention center here in Muncie, there'd be 60, 80 kids sitting there on the floor listening to me. And I'd ask them, how many of you, when you got caught doing what you were doing to get here, were with your friends? And like everybody, And then after a period of time, you'd see some come or go and then come back. And pretty much every time is because they went back to the same friends, the same surroundings, the same environment. So you get the same results. So relationships, it's who you know. Knowledge, what you know. The Bible says, study to show yourself approved. And I may not be quoting it exactly, but a workman that doesn't need to be ashamed, because you can rightly divide the word of truth. And that was in ministry, Paul, I believe, talking to Timothy, but it goes for anything, whether it be business, whether it be family, whether it be whatever you're leading, whatever you're a part of. Study, learn. Just like when we, in the law of process, when we learned about the lady that little bit by little bit, the law of process leadership's not, taken care of in a day, but it's by your daily agenda. It's what you do little bit by little bit. So knowledge, what you know, builds your leadership. Intuition, what you feel.
Feel or feel?
Feel, yeah.
Yeah, get that Hoosier twang out of there.
Feel, yeah. It could be energy, morale, timing, momentum, just all these things. At times, as I'm sure many of you have experienced, when you're leading or you need to initiate something, or you may know what to do, but you may know it's not the right time to do it. So it's that intuition. It's okay, if I do it now, I'll mess it up. It's kind of like when I want to ask my wife for something. You just got to have that intuition, It's like, okay, today's not the day. Yeah, today's not the day.
She comes home grumpy from work.
Yeah, right? Yeah, not today. Not today.
Recall in here, does he make a distinction between intuition and instinct? Like,
I'll say it's about the same.
It's about the same. Okay,
Yeah.
you see what I mean?
Yeah.
You doing what you're good at provides you an instinct upon somebody.
Sure.
Whether they would fit the mold well of
Yeah.
whatever it is you see them possibly.
You could take those words and kind of put them together, but then you could slightly separate them a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, because instinct is kind of spur of the moment.
Yes.
You know, it's just
Instinct be a bad thing.
you instinctively do it, right? You
Yeah.
just, you know, intuition can be an instinct.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Or, you know, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, experience, where they've been, what challenges have they had in the past, you know. That's why they do job interviews. You know, because if you haven't ever led anything, but if you've led a lot, those are two big differences. You know, so what have you done in the past? What are your experiences? You know, the Bible says, you know, don't despise the day of small beginnings. Everybody starts somewhere. And so leadership, to build influence, you have to have a track record. You know, you just simply have to have a track record. And, you know, today, you guys have heard me talk about this in the presidential race, you know, lean very little on the media. Look at track record. Who have they been in the past? What decisions have they made in the past? What experiences do they have in the past? You know, past success kind of goes along with experience, what they've done. You know, again, what's your track record? Have you extended yourself? Have you taken risks? Have you succeeded? And ability, what can you do? What are you capable of? Can you be coached? Can you be a good coach? Paul told Timothy to teach men that are capable of teaching others. So there has to be an ability there. And then as we see the quote there, a leader sees more, sees farther, and sees before others. Have any of you had an experience in life that you could share that you could see that in your life, where you've seen more further down the road and you've seen something coming before anyone else did? And then maybe you didn't take action because you know the situation, or you wasn't as confident, and maybe you did. Has anybody been in those situations?
Too many times.
Too many times? Too many times where you didn't take action?
There are too many times when I saw and was not in a position to do anything more than give a warning and still follow the person because they were the leader.
Yeah. So you kind of felt like you had to kind of continue out of obligation.
Yeah.
But you saw the train wreck coming.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
I did as a young person. With a youth group I got involved with, but you know, their youth night was different than my dad's. Some of the people in that youth group were attending my dad's as well at our church. So I just, some of them were from Eaton where I grew up, so I kind of attended in spite, knowing, and it wasn't just me who knew. There were some things going on that several of us knew about, and that's, you got to talk about the company you keep and stuff, and yeah, I feel like it was majorly my disadvantage. Looking back on it, I should have pulled out and not fooled with it.
You saw it was going nowhere.
Yeah.
Or in a bad direction.
And a lot of us, as we became adults out at youth group, developed problems.
Sure. Oh yeah.
It bled into our young adulthood.
Right. Right.
That was something maybe I didn't necessarily foresee coming. But I think I started to.
Yeah.
Because some people are graduating ahead of me,
Mm-hmm.
and they're becoming alcoholics, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, one thing that can do, I mean, you know, you look at experience, the knowledge you receive from that, and then that helps build your intuition. So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? We all have experiences that make us who we are. You know, and sometimes we think, man, if I'd only known this, or if I'd only done that, but, you know, sometimes we give ourselves a little bit of grace, especially when we're just starting. You know, I think God uses some of those experiences to teach us, to show us, so that later down the road, you know, we can be better equipped. I know on the, when I was first elected on the county council, it wasn't so much my knowledge, but my intuition, because I picked up on what people were saying about our financial situation. I watched how some of the things were done, heard some of the talk, and my intuition picked up and said, this doesn't sound good. And so I started to try to lead in saying, guys, we need to plan ahead here. We need some foresight. We need, you know, because we were just kind of going year by year, and what came in we spent, and cross our fingers for next year. You know, I mean, that's kind of the way it felt. But it was like, we need to do something. We need a plan. And so for 2 years, I said, we need a plan. We need a plan. We need a plan. And it was amazing the kickback I got. And the financial body of the county, the majority of them, did not want to get into it, did not want to plan for the future. But now we are. But I was able, again, not through knowledge, but just through some intuition, to see further down the road and to see that we were headed in a negative direction. And in 2014, we had to take $99,000 from our rainy day fund just to make payroll. And we began, as a county government, we began 2015 with $220 in general fund.
Wow.
Pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Again, it wasn't because I had all the knowledge, but intuition kicked in, and I tried to look further down the road. So anyways, so that's kind of cool. You know, you have those experiences and you see where God is going before you. God is helping you. God is, you know, it's like, not trying to compare that situation to this, but that leads me into this, is where Joseph in Egypt, you know, God gave him intuition. Said, look, this is what's coming. And gave him the plan, gave him the ability to do it, you know. And he had built himself into a position to where he could have an audience with Pharaoh and boldly speak what God had shown him. He didn't have Google to look it up. He didn't have Wikipedia. He didn't have a dictionary. He didn't have Webster's. He didn't have a guide or a book. He just knew what God told him. He knew what he felt in his spirit. He knew, and through intuition and that boldness, he was able to speak it and say, this is what's going to happen. And this is what we need to do about it. You know? I mean, that's a pretty big deal, really, when you think about it, because I look at today, we have so much world history now. We've seen so many nations rise and fall. We've seen so many leaders rise and fall. If we learn of history, we can see patterns even in the earth. At that time, to my knowledge, there wasn't a pattern to go by.
Right. And even if there
They
had
were
been,
setting the pattern.
Yeah, even if there had been, they didn't have Google to find it out.
Right, exactly,
You know,
right.
two
right.
sides of the world, and
Yeah.
the same thing could have happened once before. They didn't know about it.
All they knew, that was the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Right.
For many years.
Mhm.
For many years, that was their world. That was all they knew.
But not too many people traveled back then, most people stayed in that,
Yeah.
in their area.
Exactly. Exactly. So I mean, when you look at all the aspects of that, it's pretty amazing stuff.
Mhm.
Pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So the next it says lead from a no leverage position. What does that mean? When you hear that, what do you immediately think? Lead from a no leverage position.
You're a nobody with no influence.
Nobody with no influence. That pretty much sums it up. It means lead right where you're at, right? Even if you don't have leverage, start leading. So how could you do that? You volunteer. You could join some type of volunteer organization. Start building your resume. Start building in leadership, if you will. Not necessarily on paper, but although it would. But building your leadership resume. Volunteer organizations. Another thing that can be done, lead your peers. You know, the people you hang with. Listen to their conversations. What are they having trouble with? What are they talking about? What's on their mind? And research it, look it up for yourself. Find out what they're talking about and ways to help. And pray for God to give you insight, intuition. And then next time you're sitting down for a cup of coffee or whatever, say, hey, I heard you talking about this the other day. What do you think about start leading? You know?
How much? I could have no idea what I'm talking about. I feel like repetition plays a part in this.
Oh yeah.
Okay, because, you know, when I walked into community corrections, outside of the director now was my probation officer, and during that small time frame, me and him got along great. He was probably when that whole thing with me was going down, as far as the justice system was concerned, he was the guy that was probably the most in my corner. But when I started seeing him out here, I was making a habit of going in there at least once a week and talking to him for 30 minutes to an hour. And I made sure I went out and did it. So it was just, I'm not saying he plugged me in to get me out of his office every week, but I grinded what I had in mind in his head.
Yeah.
I grinded it, and I feel like the repetition at least played a role in.
Sure.
And not just what he's already implemented, but what he's wanting to even go to the sheriff about concerning this.
Well, what does that show? I mean, if you got this guy coming to you constantly for the same reason, talking about the same stuff, what's that tell you?
Wants it to happen.
He wants it to happen. He's passionate.
He's got to commit.
He's committed to it.
Yeah.
And you know, a guy or a gal in a position of authority that's wanting to get something done, has this person coming to them constantly about it. Eventually, there's something going to click and say, if they're a good leader, they're going to say, I'm going to see what this guy can do. I'm going to see what this gal can do. I'm going to give them a little opportunity here to prove themselves, to see if they can actually commit to and function in what they're saying. And so it shows dedication, it shows commitment, and it can lead to opportunity. If you're willing to put yourself out there and at no benefit to yourself, and just say, look, here's what I see, here's what I do, here's what I'm capable of. Doors will open. You may get a few shut, but there's going to be a door open. It's amazing. Some of the, for instance, books there are authors that have written a book that today is just sold millions and millions of copies. But if you look at how many turned them down and how many years it took to even get the first one in print, it's mind-blowing. And one that I can think of is I think it was Chicken Soup for the Soul, Jack Canfield. The amount of times he got turned down was astronomical before somebody picked it up. And then it went like crazy. Now we got chicken soup for everybody.
Yeah.
Every kind of soul you want. There's chicken soup for it. You know what I mean? But it was just that persistence and persistence. That word keeps coming back. Just steady plodding. Just being persistent.
And having that vision, just that intuition, knowing that this is good stuff.
Yeah.
This is worth trying again.
Yeah.
Trying again. And, well, this publisher just doesn't click with my vision, but this one might. Nope, he didn't, but this one might.
Yeah.
And eventually he finds that publisher that it clicked.
Yeah. Exactly. And sometimes it could even be someone that's turned you down before.
Yeah.
You just never know. And it's just that seed planted. I've had that happen before where you're just living life, you're just doing your thing, and down the road somebody gives you a call or an email. Hey, I remember when we were talking, right? They didn't know they were listening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of a sudden there's a door of opportunity, So influencing people, to influence, you have to add value. You have to add value. So how can you intentionally add value to people? How could you intentionally add value to people? How do you think? In your personal life, in what you do, with your skill set, what you're involved in, how could you influence and add value to someone else?
Pay attention to what they're saying, what they're trying to do, what their need is, and meet them with a solution.
Right. Find out their, what they call pain point, right?
Exactly.
Find their point of pain. And then, if you can fill that gap, here's where I can help you.
I'm sure you've heard the saying, if I can say it right, people don't care how much you know, or
until
they know how much you care. That's what it is, yeah.
Exactly. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's intentionally adding value to people. I heard on this podcast yesterday, someone said I don't know if they still do this, but they at least used to write, at the end of the day, they would write 10 letters a day to individuals who have meant something in their life, have done something that inspired them, or whatever the case may be. 10 a night, every day, to intentionally add value to other people, to make them feel special. And I think that's a key. Intentional is a key word. I like the saying that says, live life on purpose. Intentionally taking your steps. The Bible says to ponder your path. To ponder your steps, to pay attention where you're going, why you're going there, where it's going to lead you. I think that's so key to success. And I think it is a vital or a major reason why we find humanity in the condition it is today. because of the lack of ability to intentionally ponder the direction of their life. You know what I mean? It's like life is happening and they're just rolling with it. And then 10, 15, 20 years later, they go, oh crap, how did I get here?
From a Christian perspective on that, that is a lot of, this is a big tree with a lot of branches.
Oh no, Robert.
But prayer and meditation,
Oh no.
that is one of the things, the prayer and meditation, why they're so vital. Because it makes you take time to step back.
It's intentional.
Yeah, intentionally step back, meditate on where am I at, what am I doing, why am I doing it, et cetera, and then seek the Lord through communication, obviously. What do I do from here? How do I handle, or maybe you just need to talk and let stuff off your chest.
Yes, yeah, sure. Sometimes you just need to say, God, here it is.
Yeah, this is how I feel about this.
Yeah. And on that note too, it reminds me of this, and I am not perfect at this. I definitely have a little bit of a routine, but I'm trying to craft it to give me a more beneficial outcomes. But everything I read and look into and study, and even if you go into the scripture and look at some of the successes of the men and women throughout scripture, a morning routine and a nightly routine can be very beneficial.
Yeah.
We talk about routines many times in a negative light because we talk about it as in getting in a rut.
Mundane, yeah.
Yeah, and getting mundane, which is true, but every strength can be a weakness also. But just a morning routine to say every morning I get up and, there are a time to reflect is in that morning and nightly routine where we talk to God, we kind of line up our day. We take that time to say, where am I going today on purpose? What will I accomplish today on purpose? So at the end of the day, you can say, I can rest my head at night because I have accomplished what I've set out to do. I have taken steps. I have progressed. And not every day, obviously, you're going to feel that way. Some days you're going to go, wow, can't wait to get to sleep so I can wake up tomorrow.
Some days you backpedal.
Exactly. But to take that time to reflect, to take that time to process, and as Stephen Covey, it was always famous for saying, sharpen the saw. To take time. We are spirit, soul, and body. And think about that. That's how God created us. God created us spirit, soul, and body. We should take care of spirit, soul, and body. So every morning, every evening, there should be a moment for our spirit, a moment for our soul, and we should have a daily routine for our body. Some type of exercise, some type of, work on our eating habits. Obviously it's going to be, as long as there's Jack's Donuts, eating habits are going to be difficult to perfect unless your view of perfection includes a Jack's Donut. Yeah. So I think that's kind of my view. But I think perfect eating habits includes a perfect donut. But
you gotta balance,
yes,
exercise.
Exactly.
The donut is the circle of life.
The donut is the circle that brings it all together. Exactly. But
I'll start having my wife cook my breakfast.
Yeah, and Jack's
circles.
And Jack's is coming to Muncie. So, but But yeah, spirit, soul, body. John, as we kind of end this, it looks like we wanted 7 weeks, but we may go 21. I don't know.
I'm up for that.
For every law, but because we're hitting one a day, But the next law we're going to talk about is the law of process, and so we'll kind of lead into that. But and it has to do with this, spirit, soul, and body, and taking those moments each day. John Maxwell calls it a personal growth plan. He's not the only one, but call it a personal growth plan. So living on purpose, little bit every day. So what book are you purposefully reading? What scriptures are you purposefully reading? What prayers are you purposefully saying? And what exercise or eating habits are you purposefully doing? Because every little bit by little bit, is going to benefit you in the future. It's like planting seeds. And then next week, we'll one of the things he talks about is his book, Today Matters. And this is what it looks like. And I got this back, I think in 2006 is when I first got this. I wrote a little something in the front. But it's just an entire book about this very topic of just every day doing something on purpose, having a good attitude on purpose. Keeping your priorities on purpose, health on purpose, family on purpose, thinking on purpose, commitment on purpose, finances on purpose. This is where I'm hoping to get better, because I need, and again, some of the more successful people that I've read, how they do their finances, is they'll just take like 2 minutes at the end of the day, look at their bank statement, match out their checkbook, make sure it's all balanced, check any bills, they're done for the day. I think
Sounds simple.
I need to apply that. It only takes a couple minutes a day. But what I do is like, I don't feel like doing it today. I don't feel like doing it today. And then about once every other week, I've got this big pile of stuff. And I'm sitting there for an hour, trying to go through it, trying to balance.
Kids, leave me alone.
What's
not
that?
now. Kids, leave me alone. Not
Exactly.
You're like, man, I hate doing.
Yeah, right? And that's my problem. I'm like, I don't want to see it, so I just push it off. Like it's going to make it better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But faith, on purpose, relationships, generosity, values, growth on purpose. So success can be defined in your daily agenda.
One thing I was wanting to add a few minutes ago when we were talking, and this goes along with on purpose, when we were talking about our thinking and stuff. There was a company that I worked for many, many years ago. I think I maybe mentioned it. Every single day we would come together. We were all required to be reading stuff like this. Some form, some book that was going to be self-developing. And there would be like 7 or 8 of us that would come together every day before we'd actually start applying ourselves to our job.
Mm-hmm.
We would have our meeting and we would share from our book what we had read since the day before. So it was kind of like we were all reading 7 different books along the way, because we were reading our own and then we were getting input from everybody else's books each meeting.
Oh, okay. So you would read, everybody would pick their own and
We
then
would be
share.
reading something different.
That's cool. Yeah.
And along with our required reading, we were to spend at least 15 minutes of think time.
Yeah.
Just sitting and thinking and putting things in place in our minds so that we're acting on purpose.
Yeah. That's one thing that John Maxwell, he has what he calls his thinking chair.
Oh,
That's what it's just a chair that's designated. He'll sit and he'll think and he'll ponder. And even, believe it or not, wrote a book about it. He's got tons of books.
Yes.
It's called Thinking for a Change. And it's all about that. It's about taking time to process, to reflect, to think before you take action.
Well, I know where mine's at. It's sitting in Ollie's. It's like this lounge chair.
Yeah, right,
So
right.
you can sit it outside or inside.
Exactly.
That's my thinking.